Hello, welcome to another episode of Spoiled. This time we're going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. We three are the first three in the office to have beaten it.
Yes.
Yep.
And we've been biting back on our urge to unpack so much of this complicated story for this episode. So we actually haven't talked about like the ins and outs of the story at all.
Not at all. We've refrained from even discussing little things, and I need to pick your guys' brains because I have no idea what happened really. Like I'm really confused by a lot of the big beats in that game.
Now, imagine for me, I played this game for review, so I beat it a month ago and have not been able to talk about the ending with anyone. So I am looking forward to this.
I was never expecting this twist. Oh, also just as a head, massive spoilers in this episode of Spoiled. But so you are not Big Boss this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It was
me.
It was you, man.
It said Reiner, and it looked just like me.
Well, like if people played Ground Zeroes, Ground Zeroes ends with the helicopter going down as Mother Base is being destroyed and stuff. And apparently, well, there was a paramedic on there. There was a medic on there.
Yep.
And the way it played out in Ground Zeroes was that there was another bomb inside of Paz. It blew up, and that threw things off. And then they ran into another helicopter, and things got bad, and the Chico, the medic, and Snake went down with it. Mm-hmm. But as it turns out, the medic was like one of Snake's best guys and jumped in front of the blast.
Yeah, and you can they show that a little bit in Ground Zeroes even. Like you if you're paying attention, like it all comes together. I replayed Ground Zeroes after beating Phantom Pain and saw that sequence again, and there's just some things like, for instance, the medic, and people caught on to this before Phantom Pain was like they caught on to some parts of this right when Ground Zeroes came out. The fact that the medic is very conspicuously obscured.
Oh yeah, he's got the mask and
I mean, like you just don't see him. Like, and he sounds like someone took Kiefer Sutherland's voice and just sort of made it a little lower, like turned
interesting.
A switch. So it's like, even back then, it was like, that really sounds like Kiefer Sutherland.
I never picked up on that.
You go all the way back to when he announced the game at the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's show, not knowing what it is. It was Moby Dick Productions or whatever. Mm-hmm. That plays a big role in the game. Your name is Ahab, right?
Yeah.
But also then just the guy who's talking about the game wearing the gauze, like around his face.
Yeah.
That all ties into the big twist of the game. Like they were like teasing what this whole big twist was before we really knew what the game was.
Well, also the fact they showed that section, that cinematic section where it's like when they're in the hospital in Cyprus, and then it's like, I think they're in Cyprus at that point. And who cares where? The idea is there's Master Miller on one bed, Big Boss on another bed, and then you're seeing it from the perspective of a third bed.
And Miller looks across Big Boss and is like, what about him or something like that?
Yeah, where it's like, look, where Big Boss is sort of laid out, and it's like, oh, he sustained some damage, and Kaz is like, what about him? He's took some shrapnel to the head or something like that.
Well, and at that point, like you see the x-rays at the beginning of Phantom Pain, and he's just riddled with shrapnel. So that's what Miller's looking at.
It's
is
like
just
popcorn in his body.
Yeah. Oh, woof.
Why would you even say what about him at that point? Like the answer should be apparent.
Human pincushion. But so apparently, since we are running through Ground Zeroes, I guess we might as well just like tear that all apart. So that medic who ends up being the fake Big Boss in all of Phantom Pain also found another bomb inside of Paz. Mm-hmm. But so like that's a weird thing is that I guess that was like a hallucination or something. Like because Paz didn't blow up then.
She did.
She did blow up.
Yep. It seems like maybe you did not complete part of a storyline in Phantom Pain.
I found Paz on the base.
Yep. The conclusion of that storyline, they reveal that that's all basically a hallucination. That section of the medical bay that you find Paz in isn't even finished.
Yeah. Oh.
So, and then you even get like a little tape from her. It's basically just this like manifestation of your guilt over what happened and stuff. So
good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Speaking of guilt, though, I mean, really think about what Snake and Miller and those guys planned. I mean, they took this guy's life.
Well, not Miller.
Well,
Ocelot and Snake.
Ocelot. Yeah, sorry.
No problem.
I get the blondes confused.
It's Zero. It's Cypher's plan.
It all comes down
that
from
they're like it's Major Zero's big plot that is sort of carried out by, I think both Miller and Ocelot know about it.
I got the impression that Miller didn't know.
They both know about it at some point, but then there's also some talk about like Ocelot at some point is like, I think he like says he's going to hypnitize himself so he doesn't know about it.
That was a weird one too. But I got the impression that Miller was like part of the reason that he's working with Solid Snake in Metal Gear 2, because now we found out that Phantom, your doppelganger that you kind of create, that they create, and you play in Phantom Pain, is the guy who takes the fall for Big Boss in Metal Gear 1, like the original Metal Gear. But I think the idea might be that Miller's looking for revenge on Big Boss for just sort of duping them all, and he's just feeling super.
I don't know that he's necessarily actively looking for revenge as much as he's just sort of like disillusioned with the thing at that point. But what you bring up that I think is important, we've been talking about the twist and that like, okay, there are two big bosses.
Right.
And like, I think what's important to bring up is like the main reason for that, the thing that explains in Metal Gear continuity is the fact that Big Boss supposedly was killed twice, or supposedly died 3 times actually. You have before the release of Phantom Pain, we knew Big Boss died at the end of Metal Gear 1, Metal Gear 2, and Metal Gear 4, Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah.
So what this explains is that the big boss that dies in the original Metal Gear 1, was not the real big boss. That was Big Boss's Phantom. And
that's the confusing thing to me is that, I mean, of all the things that we talk about, of all the confusing threads throughout all of the Metal Gear story, we never, ever, no one ever gave pause to be like, oh, why did he die twice? No, because he's a video game boss. They come back.
Yeah. Which is actually one of the reasons, I mean, I have really mixed feelings on this story and the way this is all coming. So, like, I don't want to come out that I'm just, like, totally defending this at every stretch. But that is one of the things I appreciated about the twist anyway, was the fact that, like, that was what's interesting about it is that it was a question no one was asking. Everyone was just like, 80s video games. People come back from the dead.
Right.
So to suddenly, 30 years, like almost 30 years after that original game, to circle back and sort of give an explanation to something that no one had even really thought to consider inconsistent.
It's such a Kojima thing.
Yeah. I thought it was cool, though.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It really grew on me. I was really, like, grossed out after I found that out. And, like, because I just loved digging in as Big Boss. And you feel like such a badass legendary soldier in that game.
You are better than Big Boss. This guy, whoever you created, is better than Big Boss.
He's amazing. But I just felt like bereft after I found that out. I felt like I was getting so attached to the idea of being Big Boss, and the real Big Boss is off going and doing something, and we'll never get a Kojima game that explores that possibility, and clearly what they're kind of setting up,
which is sad. It's really sad.
Yeah,
but it also, like, to go back to the guilt thing, I think it really kind of puts Big Boss in a negative light too. Like, I think he doesn't come off as a really good guy saving the world. Like, he's sacrificing people for his own just means, right? Like what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
But who knows if that medic hadn't been planned to, and this is me just sort of theorizing, like, if they didn't have those plans for that medic to replace Boss, like, maybe he wouldn't have lived it all. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to justify, because it's clearly like intensive stuff they had to do to get this guy alive. Like, they're playing, the hardest game of like Milton Bradley's Operation or whatever on him. And like, I just don't know if they would have had the resources to do that if they didn't have this huge grand plan to make him a doppelganger.
I think the thing they found right away is he had brain damage, right? So they probably thought, like, if we have any candidate, maybe it's this guy. Like,
kind of the RoboCop situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like, well, I mean, we have a candidate, we can give it a shot. Kind of thing, maybe.
Did the shrapnel in his head like make him a more prime candidate for that? And that he had amnesia and stuff? Because like, it makes me wonder if they could have just taken like, hey, if we're going to sacrifice someone to become a Phantom Big Boss, couldn't they have just grabbed a more, like, someone didn't have a giant piece of metal sticking out of their head and it was the hugest hazard in the world? Like,
I mean, I think there is something there is a point when they say that like this medic, that Big Boss himself considered this medic kind of like one of MSF's best men.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe the fact that like you need a soldier who's not a chump to take, to step up and take that role.
Maybe that's why on the battlefield when Big Boss just like gets one of those critical injuries, he can just kind of go, click. Like, I'm a great medic. I don't know that, but yeah.
How do I know this?
Spray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys generally felt, because all right, I felt bereft and weird about finding out that I was playing this kind of imposter, but as I've gotten more time away from the ending, it's kind of grown on me a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
I like it more and more the more I think about it. I didn't like having to play through that prologue mission again entirely.
Yeah, the whole
they could have like abridged it, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I liked the concept of it. I thought they did a good job of like, okay, let's go back to stage 1. You're like, oh yeah, I made my own character.
Yeah.
And then you see how that plays out.
Especially if they would have done a little more, like, I was expecting more because it had that little subtitle truth on the mission, right? And really the only stuff that's different is sort of at the very beginning with like the mirror and then the cutscene that follows. But like, I think it would have been interesting to show that maybe some of that stuff that you thought you were seeing the first time through wasn't exactly as it seemed to be.
Yeah.
Like, play around
Fight
with that.
Club-esque.
Yeah, play around with that hallucinatory like element of it a little more, and they just didn't touch it. It's just like here's another 50 minutes of learning how to play the game after you.
I mean, it was cool because you see like, oh, okay, now that's for sure Quiet, who was the assassin, because like I didn't remember if we saw her face that clearly in the beginning, but you see it super clearly in the truth version of that beginning, and also
and in the normal one.
In the normal one, you do see your face. Okay, I just didn't put it together. But the other thing I wanted to point out was that there's a part where you think that you're Big Boss is Phantom, and then the other dude in bandages in the hospital is actual Big Boss. He's a little more chatty and kind of like witty and stuff like that, and it's he even has a moment where he's like, "You talking to yourself?" Because like I think you were supposed to believe the first time you saw that hospital sequence that he was a hallucination, like a Fight Club thing.
Yeah. Or it like if not clearly saying you're supposed to think he's a hallucination, at least give you some evidence to support that. I think the idea is to come out of that intro being like, what was going on with that weird like avatar creation thing? And he said I was talking to myself. So does that mean that I was fighting? Except he did fight Quiet when I was over here. So maybe I think it's meant to be ambiguous until it's not.
The whole thing with Quiet being there at that point makes no sense to me. And I have some questions about that. Like,
it was Skullface's like higher, right? It was Skullface that sent Quiet out.
So you learn that Quiet can't wear clothing because she breathes through her skin.
Mm-hmm.
She's fully clothed, but in that moment.
Yeah,
but she burned her skin off. I think that she got that treatment after that, right?
Yeah,
it was because she burned her skin off that she got the photosynthetic kind of
putting the.
She also speaks in that sequence. So basically, when you wake up in the hospital, at that point there's no significant like time gap. There's no this many years later or whatever. Once you're awake, the game proceeds pretty much just like linearly, right?
Right.
So Quiet is a part of XOF, which is the group that Skullface commands. Skullface sent XOF to the hospital to investigate what was going on with the third child, like young Psycho Mantis, because the helicopter went down and stuff with Volgan. Anyway, while they were in that area, they somehow zeroed in that like, oh, also this is where Big Boss is in this hospital. Quiet went in there to like assassinate him. She got burned and like thrown out the window. Right. And after that, she got the parasite treatment,
right. But then when you go fight her in the second fight, she's wearing clothes again.
I need to talk about the second.
You mean the extreme version?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think those are actually like canon.
They really needed to clean that up, because when I saw her in the clothes again, I was like, wait, how is this all connected? Because she shouldn't be able to do this. This is your whole point of her, outside of creating action figures or whatever you said, like of her like wearing clothing. It made no sense to me.
It's best not to overthink that stuff, because I mean, because it doesn't Code Talker have the same condition, and like he's got the same thing going on, right? He's got the weird eye, like coloring, like the black sort of like mascara stuff that would spread out from his forehead. We saw that with him. If they come from the end,
the end from 3. Right?
Yeah, from 3, like both those guys are fully clothed. And
but he wore like trees.
Yeah, he did.
He's like Swamp Thing.
Suit. Yeah, but it seems like those guys. It seems like Code Talker and Quiet share similar DNA in that stuff.
Yeah, I actually don't know. I don't know the reason behind like why Code Talker and Quiet why their situations are different in that regard. I mean, like again, knowing the reason is really just knowing the sort of roundabout explanation for why one person can wear clothes and why the woman's in a bikini.
Right.
I mean, like whatever the story implication of it is, it's just to explain away why things are the way they are.
Clumsy.
It's not interesting.
It's just clumsy justification,
but
rationalization.
Exactly.
Quiet Story actually, it almost becomes Quiet Story at the end of that game up until the big reveal, right? Like it really focuses on her kind of finding herself again, right?
And you can miss that. Actually, Cork was going to sit on this conversation, and he realized that it was at Mission 45 that you have to do some special stuff to get the sort of resolution with Quiet Story where Big Boss and I guess we'll have to start calling him Venom Snake because Venom Snake is the
clear.
Phantom.
Yeah.
That Venom Snake and Quiet have their big, like he goes and rescues her. She's been captured, and man, there's an intense scene where like it was rough. Like it seems like she's about to be raped.
Yeah.
And drowned.
Yeah.
And then she goes ape shit on these guys. Like she's just stabbing people in the crotch and like flipping around. And it's weird because I played very non-lethal, and then she's just losing it.
Yep.
And it was like a really badass like revenge scene.
Yeah, that's the best cutscene in the game, in my opinion, where you're just like, holy crap. Because, I mean, it's directed really well. The cinematography, the action sequences are really unique and cool looking.
And then followed by maybe one of the most frustrating missions I had played in the entire game.
Yeah, it was frustrating for me too.
Did you have
tank
trouble
battle?
with the tanks?
Oh, no.
I swear I shot one with the Killer Bee. Is that what it was? Killer Bee?
Honeybee.
Honeybee? Yeah.
Or Killer Bees.
I think I upgraded it to the, whatever the Stinger lock-on rocket launcher is. And I shot some of those tanks like maybe 20 times.
Whoa.
Some of them took, I don't know if there was some weird thing going on, but
It should be like 3 or 4.
it's something was going wrong. But regardless, you finish that up, and that will unlock this other part of the ending, which is to recap that, like you rescue Quiet and you get the real ending, or one of the real endings, and Snake's carrying her along, and there's like he gets bit by a snake, and then she saves him, but to save him,
it's
she
supposed to be like poetic or ironic.
I know he went for it, but it was dumb.
Yeah.
And the idea that they would know that those would be there, and he wouldn't have like a tiny antidote on him or something like that in all his pack. Anyway, so she has to speak. She has the vocal parasite, the vocal cord parasite,
For the English language.
For the English language, which is like besides that, Eli Liquid Snake, which is a whole other can of worms we got to get to.
Yep.
He has the other one.
Yep.
At that point, so these are the only two, and she speaks to call in the helicopter and is directing it for way too long, like air traffic control, or like your mom's trying to find out where you are and you're on the phone with her, but like, no, go take a right there. Yeah, take a left. Okay, yeah, keep going forward. Yes, Mom. And then the helicopter grabs them, and then she leaves him. It's really cool. I think at a certain point, like the helicopter comes, and Snake can either get in it, or you can follow her footsteps through the sand. I'm assuming that
you listen for her. You hear her singing. Yeah, I heard her singing.
I just followed her footsteps because she was invisible.
Yeah, if you go the other way, you can't hear her anymore. So you could just kind of follow the sound. That's what I did.
That's clever.
It led me up the cliff to the cassette tape.
Did you guys look? Did you see if there was a prompt on the helicopter to like just?
I think you could have left. I think you can even run outside of the boundary. That's the first thing I tried to do.
Oh.
And it's like, are you really going to leave her?
Oh, really?
And I think it gives you an option.
You.
But maybe it'll turn you back. I don't know.
I mean, I didn't try and get in the helicopter. I just walked.
Yeah, of course. Like I immediately, it was amazing because she went from being a character that I didn't really feel that strongly about to like in those final hours, like I was like, this is fascinating. I am really like, I'm really feeling invested in her story.
She's a cool character.
And she leaves a cassette behind.
Yep.
And I was worried they were going to make her a love interest because there's that one scene where they're playing in the puddles in the rain. Yeah, and then they embrace at the end of that. And I was like, oh boy, are they really going to do this cliched plot?
It seems like it's much more of a sort of like big brother, little sister kind of thing.
But in that one moment, they made you think like, there's something there
Also,
now.
when you get to 100 bond level with her, like in the helicopter, when she's sort of like idling around, stretching and stuff, like her animations change. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but she like leans in and like makes eyes at you and stuff and kind of smirks. And she also does this one where she's like bending over and looks behind you and stuff. Like, I don't know if that's
weird.
That's not big sister.
Anytime she comes on screen, the camera's like on her chest.
Yeah. That's okay. We don't need.
We don't need to go in that. But
so another thing that's frustrating to me about Quiet though, is that like, okay, so like when she's trying to get the helicopter to come down, first she tries like speaking Navajo, which is a language that doesn't have the parasite attached to it. But then that just begs the question is like, why is she like, there are times on the base where I get that she's obstinate and maybe doesn't like Big Boss or Diamond Dogs all the time or whatever, but like there are times when just like a simple like tap once for yes, twice for no,
Right.
or like there are ways to communicate, and like the way they try to address it in the game is, you know, like I think it's Ocelot at some point in a tape is just sort of being like, maybe she's just stubborn. It's like that's not going to do it.
No. That's another thing I wanted to ask you guys is like, so it's they actually say the word love, like Quiet's in love with Big Boss, like you know what type of love is up to interpretation, but but then she held on to the vocal parasite and stuff because it seems like she has like this conflicted thing with them, like it's like she also hates like the Diamond Dogs and stuff. Like, did you gather that stuff where it seems like, but she kind of hates you guys, but she really likes you guys, and she's hanging on to this because she might want to like unleash the English strain on you guys?
Yeah,
very unclear.
Super weird. Yeah, I didn't really get that. That's one of those things where it's like, what is going on with her? Like,
and
it seems like there's something missing there. Like there might have been another sequence that didn't make it into the game or something.
Yeah,
and it writes her out of the rest of the Metal Gear series because she needs to like completely isolate herself. Otherwise, that English strain is just going to tear everything apart.
Right. So the idea there are a few questions about it, because like at one point in the game they describe the activation of the parasite as though you're sort of like slowly filling a glass.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just like the second you speak a single word of English, oh no, you're gonna be terrible. Right.
Yeah.
So to some degree you'd think, oh, maybe she's fine, maybe she's not symptomatic or whatever, and maybe that's why she's leaving to isolate herself. But then like as long as she doesn't speak, couldn't she just stick around?
Yeah.
Yeah, if she wasn't symptomatic, then I guess.
Yeah. And
just
like,
don't talk in your sleep.
Right. Oh, that's a good point.
So, but I do think, and this is a little more gameplay and a little less story related, but like I do think it is total crap that they take her out of your, like, remove her as an option for a buddy.
Yeah, or replace her with like, hey, we got some cloning going on, or here's a robot version of Quiet. Like, I'm conflicted about it because on one end, like it's for me like. It's a really like risky move to make, especially in an open world game that's built around like go do everything. Like there's so many things to do.
She is particularly suited to like do well on certain missions.
Yeah.
So if you're the type of player that wants to go back and S rank particular missions,
nope.
I mean you can do it, but like it sure would have been better with Quiet.
You're not gonna have healthy
if you're a player,
yeah.
if you're a player like Jeff Cork who like uses Quiet exclusively, suddenly you get to the point. And it's not like the game. I mean. Again, it would sort of take away from the surprise or the impact if the game sort of warns you what's going on. But at the same time, like, to just have the game proceed like, oh, this is just the story. This is just what you do. And then at some point it's like, oh, well, I guess it would have been nice to know that I wouldn't have access to her somehow.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, that's the thing is that they shouldn't remove her at all. I like the idea of like some sort of stand-in or whatever. Just use Quiet again because like
put a sniper rifle in D-Dog's mouth and just let him.
Yeah. Well, there's also the fact like the game lets you go back and do things that sort of break the timeline. Also, you know, it's like
maybe
they let you put Quiet in a full body, in a full body uniform, even though technically she shouldn't be able to do that. You know, it's like sometimes doing it to suit canon. In some cases,
doesn't make any sense.
It's a disservice to the player. I completely agree with that. So there was.
The whole thing, by the way, with the vocal cord parasites is the dumbest plot point ever.
Code Talker's cassettes are the most like brain-numbing things. Some of them, there's shades of interesting stuff in there, but then it's just like I think Cork put it really well. It's just like someone's just like reading a Wikipedia page right now.
Yeah, I think Kojima loves Wikipedia throughout that whole game.
Yeah.
But that whole plot, I laughed every time they brought it up again. And that was like the big thing with this. And then the other thing I thought was to stay on the negative note here was in that sequence where you go back into the quarantine zone and you have to take out your troops. It's really intense. You're shooting your own guys.
Oh yeah.
Even over your headset, they're yelling at you.
Your heroism's going down each time, especially if you played a non-lethal playthrough. Just like going and killing your own dudes, it just felt like they'd elicited the emotions they were going for from me when I did that scene. Yeah,
but then they cremate all those bodies. And then he decides these infected people to just rub that stuff all over his face. I was like, what are you doing?
Well, they're ashes.
I know, but what are you doing, man? You're taking someone's ashes that you're going to like send to sea and rubbing it all over your face in front of
It
your
was a little
troops.
awkward. It's like the scene from Big Lebowski where they're just trying to.
Yeah, and it's like the wind. That's exactly what I thought.
They should cut those scenes together.
Yeah.
Actually, someone should get that on YouTube. But they turn them into diamonds, right? And then I immediately Google it. I'm like, turn ashes, and then it's a million memorial services type things. Where it's like, turn your loved ones into diamonds. I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't even know that could happen.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I know they were
Did you guys
going.
notice like in the helicopter then you have a little diamond on your arm.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's clever.
You get a little sparkle after that.
But I thought they were going to go something really sentimental with that, and it just didn't pay off. I thought it was just super bad. I was like, don't do that.
I remembered that scene from the trailer, so I knew at that point that was coming. But one thing we didn't talk about was I think the end of the first chapter, which is like the conclusion of Skullface's like immediate timeline. He has ripple effects throughout the story, but we find out. Now I want to make sure I'm right on this. Skullface is this part of the support unit that's been following around Snake for a long time, specifically like the Snake Eater missions,
Yep.
Right.
and stuff like that, and Virtuous mission, and like he followed him around. He cleaned up after him, and Snake never knew about him. Or Big Boss never knew about him, and he's horribly burned, and hates Zero and Snake because he was sent off to Africa, or like I have like just 50% of understanding of Skullface.
yeah.
I don't get him.
The more I think about him, the less I realize I know.
I mean, the thing that I remember the most clearly about him is just the fact that like his whole thing against the English language in general was sort of it. Like he sees that as sort of being used as a weapon of conquest.
That's right,
know?
because he didn't have a choice in his upbringing, and he was forced to speak a different language. He thinks that language is an extension. It's almost like a different version of the outer heavens philosophy, which is like all these just false allegiances to the country that you're in just because you were born there. This is such a stupid reason for conflict, and language is an extension of that. So we need to eradicate language and start from zero on that. Is that basically what you gathered?
Yeah, or there's what, 7 left? I don't remember what they said. There's a certain number left or whatever, but yeah, I just thought that whole concept was super dumb.
Yeah.
See, like if okay, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead.
Like, I agree. Like plausibility wise, the weird sort of circles they talk around to like explain, how this is a thing and this is how they mate and this is why it's happening. That stuff I roll my eyes at a little bit. What I liked about it was that like in Metal Gear, it's always just this nuclear threat, right? It's always just like, it's a tank, it has a nuke. It's a different kind of tank and it has a nuke.
Kind of what I like about that. And I think it kind of, when you saw the new Metal Gear in this game, you're like, oh man, look at that thing. And then it's just like, it's kind of a mid-boss. It's not really about Metal Gear, not really living up what the name of the series is about. It's something different. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
In concept, that's cool. But holy hell. Like just affecting people that speak certain, languages.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah, see, like that-
I
like
kind of
that-
liked it,
it
especially
makes
for
no
Metal Gear.
sense.
It fits with Metal Gear though. I mean, the world of nanomachines and
forehead
and photosynthetic
nanomachines.
skin and stuff like that. Like this one jumped the shark in some ways that.
I would rather see jumping sharks killing people.
Well, maybe
No, because like for me, I just thought that it was really cool. The idea of like this is not like a weapon of mass destruction. This is not a military weapon necessarily. This is something that is a little more, that it's more organic and like to me it was like it came across as much scarier, I think, as a threat because it's like, nuclear weapon. I've seen that go off in tons of movies and games and stuff before, so it kind of loses its impact versus I think the idea of just like you have to watch what you can't even speak or else you're going to die this this grotesque death. I thought that was interesting.
I'm a little bit with Joe, but I see where you're coming from. And you mentioned is it
Sahelanthropus.
The
Metal Gear. The Metal Gear.
The ran through this, the hippopotamus. So that Metal Gear thing that they recover, they recover it and put it on Mother Base. I was thinking at a certain point, like, this is like Metal Gear 1 when they say that, Big Boss has got a Metal Gear, that this is the one. But one of the threads that is the most left dangling, like, it's insane. Like, it's maybe the most insane, like, left dangling thing. Like, I don't know. Basically, Eli, who is Liquid Snake, young Liquid Snake, partners up with the kids and like the child soldiers that they rescue, and they steal the Metal Gear and go to some island and start a Lord of the Flies situation. He even had the conch shell and stuff. And
this, by the way, is what you need when you need to look on YouTube for this stuff.
Episode 51, there's like a 20-minute episode or something like that, and it was all cut. Probably, who knows exactly the reasons why, but there's theories that it's just Konami is like, hey, we got to get this game out here. And they were ending their relationship with Kojima. But basically, Eli takes it. He has the English strain in him. He's still with the third boy or the third child or whatever, third boy, who is they do not confirm that he is Psycho Mantis anywhere, right? They don't mention it. They don't say Mantis. They don't say Psycho. No. It's just assumed like this is him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the pieces sort of start to line up with his backstory also, just in terms of like where he's from and things like that.
I was waiting for that part where like it makes sense, because I think when you talk to Psycho Mantis in Metal Gear Solid 1 or Metal Gear Solid 98 one, he talks about like he burned down his village. I think he says that, and that makes sense because everything's on fire around this kid.
Yeah.
But that he also teamed up with Liquid and was gave him the parasite, helped him float the Metal Gear off onto the island, and then Venom Snake goes to the island, and also, is it Skulls or XOF or something like that, or someone else, some other military faction is encroaching.
I thought it was XOF. I guess I don't know.
Can't remember. But anyway, they take it from him. It seems like Psycho Mantis destroys the strain inside. Like he pulls the parasites out of his throat.
Right.
And I don't know why. Was it kind of, did they even like, is there a reason why you think he did that?
I think he was just saving Eli's life.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
And then they destroy that. That Metal Gear is destroyed, right?
I think so.
I can't quite remember. It's unfinished.
Yeah, because you never... Yeah, it's like, we got the Metal Gear, we're going to use this, and then it's just gone.
Its head looks a lot like Metal Gear Rex. I wouldn't be surprised if like its wreckage was sort of discovered and repurposed or something like that.
And then at that point, does Liquid go off to the UK or something? Or I can't remember where would he go off with Miller?
I don't know where his timeline lines up at that point. I mean, eventually he ends up going into like what the SAS.
Yeah, that's right.
And stuff like that. But like that's all... I think that what happens between MGS5 and Metal Gear Solid for Liquid Snake, you're just supposed to fill in the gaps yourself. As like, this is where, after this, his sort of military career begins. I think they say in the timeline at the end of the game that, was it like, because Tim and I just watched this, it was like 1991 or something that Solid Snake and Liquid Snake sort of go into the field for the first time. So... there's a few years of sort of training and stuff that goes on, I assume.
One other thing I wanted to touch on was Huey Emmerich. He was like pretty insufferable, but also
terrible.
Like he's just delusional, right? Like or is it vague? Because it seems like he killed his wife, Strangelove, and the father of Hal, Otacon from Metal Gear Solid. It seems like it's so hard to tell, because I think the performance is actually really convincing. It's like, what do you guys think was the deal with Huey?
So I think he was just like a pathological liar.
Yeah.
Which to me was very frustrating for a couple of reasons. The first one being, it just seems like his personality did a total 180 from Peace Walker. If you guys played Peace Walker. Where he was basically just like a carbon copy of Otacon's personality.
Out of time.
Just a little bit, it's like, hey, it's this character except it's his dad.
Yep.
And it's the exact same thing. And then all of a sudden, in Phantom Pain, we find out like, oh yeah, he's just this, huge shitbag who like betrays everyone all the time and lies all the time.
Super selfish.
Yeah. But the thing about his lies that's so weird, and this bothered me, is that like he has nothing to gain from them. So it's almost like he's just deliberately there to like throw the players off in the wrong direction rather than...
And even the wrap up where he's like, you're the ones that are killing people, you're the ones that are in the wrong. It's like, no, you're lying again. Like this, get on that damn raft and get the hell out of here.
Yeah, throw your robot legs overboard.
Because the game, I mean, I don't know that it ever officially is just like definitively says, oh, well, there was some questions, but now we know for sure this is what happened. But it strongly hints that, yes, like he's the one who betrayed people in Ground Zeroes and like led to Mother Base being destroyed.
Yep.
He like intentionally obscured the location, or intentionally hid the location of Sahelanthropus when you guys when you wanted it. He killed his wife, like he sealed her inside that AI pod.
Yeah,
that definitely happened.
Why would Huey let in XOF? I'm trying to think back. Like, why would he betray him?
I don't know.
Maybe he needed to do that to cover his tracks, make it seem like he's a team player.
Maybe they lulled him over there and like they were just promising him more toys and tools
resources.
to work with, because clearly that's all he cared about was making these things.
Probably resources, because he was in a bad spot too. Remember where you had to get him.
That's true.
So
I did like there was one moment with Huey where it's the part where he's going off on Diamond Dogs and he's like, "You're all a bunch of psychopaths. Like you guys think that you're saving the world from this type of strife, but you're just creating it and perpetuating it." And at one point he just takes a sidestep and he's like, "And that dog is clearly a wolf. You just have a wolf on here. He's not a dog. You guys are all maniacs." I love that because it's so vague and it's just like stuffing your face in it. It's just like, you guys can't just ignore this.
It was the same voice actor as the Riddler from the Arkham games, right?
Oh, was he?
I kept hearing the Riddler.
I don't know.
Oh, speaking of voice acting, we recently had a chat with Chris Zimmerman, who was the voice director for Metal Gear Solid 1, and then all of them. She went up through 5. And we started to talk to her about like, hey, the switch from David Hayter to Kiefer Sutherland. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Ben Hansen, who hadn't beaten the game yet, was kind of asking like, hey, so, can you give any insight into why they changed the voice and stuff like that? And her response was, have you beaten the game yet? And so she was sort of like, we couldn't dive into it because Ben hadn't beaten yet, man. Like, spoilers, you got to be careful about him, right?
Yeah.
But from what I gleaned from that was she was, and other people have kind of like come to this conclusion too, is that the reason that most of the voice that you hear for Big Boss or all of it is Kiefer is because like Venom Snake sounds a little different. It seems like that's what they're getting at, is that like he has a different voice slightly because he's a different guy. And that's a weird thing because the real Big Boss is also voiced by Kiefer.
Yeah.
But he talks a little bit more slightly more like the Big Boss we know from Peace Walker and Snake Eater and stuff. Like he's got a little bit more of a personality, right? Like when he's voicing Big Boss. I don't know if you guys picked up on that.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, at the beginning for sure. But I think the reason is just Kojima really liked the show 24.
I mean,
he obviously is in love, if you follow him on Twitter, with Hollywood and being a part of that. And
the voice director, Chris Zimmerman, also said that, like, yeah, Kojima is just always, she believes, like, he's always just wanted to work with, like, a big celebrity actor dude to lead one of the games. So, there was a bit of that.
I feel like Kiefer Sutherland did a good job for what he was doing, but like this sort of ties into some spoiler territory stuff too. Is just like he really he does most of his work in those tapes.
Yeah,
that's really where you hear him the most.
In the end,
I'm guessing those tapes were probably going to be something more in the end if the game was completed the way they wanted. That's all speculation, but. Yeah, they were definitely weird. I like the concept of it, having a cassette tape. That's super funny.
Well, and at least the Code Talker cassettes, like as boring as they are, set up an amazing punchline with the hamburgers of Kazuhira Miller, where it's just this amazing thing because like Miller's just a jackass in that game. Miller's a contemptible, like he's just such a moody prick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just culminates in like these two personalities coming together, and Miller's just trying to like. It sounds like they're trying to start a Diamond Dogs like chain of burger places, and he swings all over the place like, it's a lamb burger, and it's just like Kotaker's like, you can't make a hamburger. It needs to be beef, man. And then he swings in these different directions, like it's the chemical burger. It's like it tastes delicious, but it's like doesn't look right. And
I didn't follow that whole thread through on the audio tapes yet. No, I have them. I just have. I mean, like,
got to listen to them.
What you have to understand is that I have like several hours of tapes to listen to, probably. So, like, I listened to all the yellow ones.
Oh, you haven't listened to all of them? Mm-mm. Oh, okay. I did listen to all of them, and like
I didn't listen to all of them, but I'd listen to the ones I was interested in.
Sure.
Like I would at least start the thread and then
it would frustrate me because as I would play, I would start one of the tapes playing, but then it would be like I'm trying to listen, and then. Ocelot comes on over.
Yeah,
they're over in the village over there, and it's like, well, what the
overlapping dialogue was.
Yeah, it bothered me.
Audio was insufferable.
I ended up just listening to them in the helicopter with nothing else going on. That's how I had to do it.
Although sometimes you get one that's like 10 minutes long. And you're
gosh.
like, well, I'm going to
clear my schedule.
Going to make a cheeseburger at home and sit down and eat it and
a chemical burger. One of the last things I wanted to touch on was just like extending from here. One of the biggest through lines in the entire Metal Gear series is Ocelot. Mm-hmm. And just to the best of your memory, Joe, if like, Ocelot from here to like Metal Gear Solid 1, like what's going on there?
I think he's ultimately just sort of working in support of Big Boss.
Okay.
And Big Boss's sort of interpretation of the boss's legacy and ultimately working to like take down the Patriots and Zero.
Yeah. And so in Metal Gear Solid 1, when he finally meets up with Liquid, or when he's working with Liquid again, Liquid, his motivations are also in line with fulfilling the boss's legacy, right?
I think Liquid, like...
Or was Ocelot playing Liquid?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Okay. Ocelot's sort of MO is to like come in as the second in command and play the guy who's in command to do whatever he wants them to do.
Right. He's like a more successful Starscream.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's actually a great way to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah. The one interesting thing about Ocelot and Miller, I think, is they have a line in Phantom Pain where it's like, where Ocelot's basically like, I'm gonna go work for the real boss, and Miller's like, oh, I'm gonna support, I'm gonna work against the real boss.
Because he's pissed off about this stuff, I feel like.
Yeah. But then they have a line where it's like, well, like, I'm going to kill you or you're going to kill me.
Yeah.
So cheesy.
But I think that line itself implies then that, like, Ocelot was the assassin who killed Miller prior to Metal Gear Solid 1, which is another question that I don't think anyone, like, it's nice to have an answer because it was a question that I had forgot was even out there.
It's tough to tell whether it was Ocelot himself or he just orchestrated it, but at the end of the day, it seems like
I like thinking that it was Ocelot.
I do
himself.
too.
I do too.
I think that exchange sets up that like there's going to be a like one-on-one confrontation between the two of them one day.
Yeah,
and one of them's going to die. And
maybe we'll see that in the next game.
And then, so just to continue again, so Ocelot after Metal Gear Solid 1 up through, so he gets Liquid's arm on him, and then he pretends to be possessed by Liquid, and then that extends.
I think he actually is possessed by Liquid, but then he removes the arm.
I think you find out that he's pretending.
He removes the arm, but then pretends that he's continued to be possessed.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so the
dumb.
AI was set up by Zero, the Patriot stuff, and Ocelot wanted to get control of that in the end of Metal Gear Solid 4. The Patriot AI stuff, right?
I don't think he wanted it destroyed.
And then why did Solid Snake also want to destroy it?
Yeah. This is beyond the realm of Phantom Pain.
I know, I just wanted to extend it out a little bit for my own sanity.
If I'm remembering this correctly, the idea is really that like Ocelot wanted to destroy the Patriots AI, but knew that anything that he did would be like that system would sort of scrutinize and predict what he would do with it. Which is why he tried to throw the system off by this weird like hypnotic thing and like becoming someone else.
Okay.
So he wanted the Patriots to send Snake after him in an attempt to sort of stop his threat against the AI. But his plan all along was to sort of turn Snake as a weapon against the Patriots themselves.
Gotcha.
That they wouldn't necessarily see that outcome. So that like by him, I think he was pretending that he wanted to like take control of SOP and MGS4 when really he wanted to destroy it. And in order to destroy it, he knew that he would turn Solid Snake against it when the Patriots sent Solid Snake against him.
Okay.
I think that's how it goes.
Super clear.
It's been a while.
But I've just got to play all the games again. That's the solution. So yeah, I just think it's interesting. Ocelot's there from like the very beginning of the lore, and like let's say it's Snake Eater essentially.
Yeah.
And just all the way through the very end of
super
just
cool.
Before Solid Snake is born, and then weaves it into him, and then like it's just fun following Ocelot. You get the clearest path through the story with him.
He's like R2D2 or C3PO.
Yeah, exactly, Reiner.
It is cool though because like when Metal Gear came out, it's like Snake is the main character. Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid, it was Snake. And I think it's interesting, kind of like the way when you look at Star Wars, it's Darth Vader's story.
Yeah.
Even though you think it's Luke Skywalker.
I really like that part, and I feel like I lucked out because like Metal Gear Solid 1, I'm like, Ocelot's my guy. I think Ocelot is an awesome character. It's just like, all right, well, it's all about him, really, at the end of the day. I'm sure there's beats that we didn't cover here. There's a lot to unpack there, and I'm glad that we waited for this. And we would love to hear, this is a whole spoilery thing. So, I mean, if you have your own theories or things you want to add,
if we got anything wrong,
I'll warn people in the story as well. But just like in the comments, I'd love to hear theories and stuff like that, and throw them all out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all experienced like Metal Gear lore at this point for a series that's gone on so long is convoluted and hard for one person to know everything. So there are
so many crazy ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure there are specifics and details we missed or screwed up or whatever. But
more revelations that will happen months down the road. But thanks for watching Spoiled. And that's a lot that we covered there. So thanks.
Sad we probably won't get another game from Kojima in this series.
Maybe not. But check out the next episode of Spoiled. But thanks for watching.